You know, I'll say one thing, War Tycoon has really been good in terms of consistency of updates this year. However, has the quality of the updates been just as good as that? Well, today I'll be going ahead and making a list of the top 5 updates in my opinion, which were the best ones that War Tycoon has actually pushed out in 2025. And I think this video is also a very great way to celebrate the fact that we are pretty much in the middle of 2025. So anyway, let's just jump right into it. So this is gonna come off as a little bit of a surprise to you guys, but the way I'm actually going to be ranking these updates as a whole is not just going to be by the quantity of content, it's also going to be about the overall quality of it and how much it was liked by the community. So that's why number 5 I'm actually going to be picking the USS Independence. This is a vehicle that the whole entire community has been requesting for a very long time. They really did put in the maximum quality into this vehicle. The only one little complaint which I would have is the fact that the interior is amazing, however the exterior is great. And it does actually come in with a new feature of the serum, and overall this is once again a free-to-play version of the Zoom world. It pretty much provided everything that we wanted out of this vehicle, and it is incredibly powerful as a ship. It's one of the most famous ships in the whole entire world. And I feel like just the overall idea of this vehicle is very great, and I can still see it used quite a lot until this day, and that's why I'm going to be ranking it as a top 5 best update, because really it did not have that many downsides to it. I'd say the only real problem that people had with it is that it was slightly better than the Zoom world as a whole. However, majority of the community was actually very happy with this vehicle arriving in the game, and genuinely it does still hold a very great mark in the history of the game. Anyway, the next one which we have on this list is going to be the update of the Hovercrafts. I really did actually enjoy this update, and the reason being is because they actually listened to our suggestions and brought in something completely new to the game, which is something we haven't seen before in a lot of war games as well. And the Hovercrafts have actually provided with some pretty good quality. I'd say they were pretty well designed. They gave us 3 variants, which even though Hovercrafts are not super realistic, I think it still semi-fits into the theme of the game, and it doesn't actually destroy the idea of the realism too much. And overall these hovercrafts feel very fun because they also pretty much feel like little bumpy cars, and I really do enjoy racing with these from time to time. It's a very fun type of vehicle to actually add into the game, and once again it wasn't really any power creeping to the game either, because these were not the strongest in the world. They were somewhat strong, they were interesting in their own way, but they were not breaking the game's balance in any single way. And then with this update they also provided us with a lot of balance changes to tanks, which have now become a lot more powerful, and with this they also buffed a lot of other vehicles which we have actually requested. So that's why I'm going to be ranking it as a number 4 position. However, personally I really feel like they didn't give us enough hovercrafts in this update to be fully satisfied for me to be able to put this as a number 1 spot. Now the update on number 3 is going to be the Challenger update, and this update did not provide the most content. However, it provided something else which we actually wanted. It provided a cool little vehicle which was the Challenger, and also provided us with the Type 65E, which I guess was alright. However, the main point of this update was actually to introduce the feature of the active protection system, and this was by far one of the most requested updates in a while. And the reason why is because pretty much every single tank was really struggling because they had absolutely no self-defense against literal missile spammers, and it took literally no skill to destroy tanks without any problems. Like, the tanks have went extinct in the game for at least 6 to 8 months, which was a very long time, and then when APS came in, it pretty much brought back the whole entire tank meta. The tanks have become a lot more used again, and the Challenger 2 was also pretty great. This is still by far one of the best tanks in the game, but once again they did not power creep the game in many ways by adding this update. And then with this we just received some bonus quality of life features and the Type 65E, which I guess was an alright addition. However, the main point of this update was really the APS feature, which really did bring back a lot of heavy play into the tanks in this current meta. I'm really glad about that. Anyway, the number 2 spot is going to be taken by the Warlab update, and yes, this update had some controversies, however it did deliver at the end of the day. It brought us in pretty much ways to make every single vehicle that we have right here just a lot better in general. Like, for example, the ground vehicles were struggling in some ways, the helicopters were struggling in some ways, the ships did, and etc. But all of these upgrades really did make a lot of more vehicles a lot more viable, and yes, it did actually make planes better than what they already were. However, there were some changes which were made which made the upgrades a little bit weaker from vehicle to vehicle, which Gizmotech has done, which hasn't actually been mentioned in any logs. However, some upgrades are not actually the 30% increase that we actually expected from them. So for some categories and for some types of vehicles, like for example the Zumwalt, I believe the statistics were dropped by a little bit in terms of firepower, so the game wouldn't be power crept a little too much. And then the next thing which was also added in this brand new update as a whole was the SR-72 Darkstar, which had a little bit of problems. I know people expected to be super powerful since it was pretty much going to be above the 5th generation. It was going to be much higher than that. However, I think the way in which they approached this vehicle was very nice. They pretty much just made it a very fast vehicle for in and out missions, and that was pretty much it about it. I think I really like that idea for this vehicle, and it really did not make it too OP. I think it fits in the meta just fine. However, the main thing I really enjoyed about this update as a whole is that it gave the whole entire community a lot more things to do, because just raiding people and constantly spawn killing, which is something that has been happening in this game quite frequently, it did actually get boring after a little bit of time. But actually grinding and making vehicles much more powerful and overall just experimenting with what's good or not after all the upgrades was also a very fun addition to this update, and it really did make people use a lot of different vehicles all over again. So this is why I really enjoyed this update. And one more thing which I also really liked about it is that people actually started grinding a lot more in the game. So it did also help out the developers with gaining more players, because this was the most loved update in the whole entire game in terms of player counts. It reached up to 45,000 players at its peak. But anyway, before we get into the #1 spot, I'd like to give an honorable mention to the Spin to Win update and some quality of life and bug fixes which War Tycoon has done for us. It isn't quite enough to put it in the top 5, however, I believe they actually did hit the nice sweet spot with this update, and a lot of people are really satisfied with it overall. And then the last update which I very much enjoyed was the Just 39 Gripen update. It pretty much increased their server counts by quite a lot, and up to 18. With this, it also gave us a new vehicle with very unique mechanics and very unique types of missiles, and overall this vehicle was very fun, but also introduced us a brand new ship which was the Barracuda, which is great for starter players. Anyways, now finally moving into the #1 spot, and the best update in my opinion for War Tycoon this year had to be the update with the call-in airdroppable vehicles. I really did enjoy this feature as a whole. The reason why is because really when people were stuck in the middle of the map and really couldn't be asked to walk all the way back to the metro to get a Humvee, they could literally call the vehicle in and just go back into combat, or maybe take themselves back to the base no matter where they were. This update was the definition of perfect quality of life. It really did give us a lot of things which we have been missing in this game a lot, and we're not wasting our time just walking around deserts anymore. But it also created some new and unique strategies for raiding people and defending your base, such as being able to get on very high places and actually use your weapons from top of the hills, top of the hangars, and also just being able to get up buildings. I think that was also a very fun feature in this update. But with this, they also gave us a fun addition of 3 cute vehicles, which were the Visos. I really actually enjoyed the addition of them. I'd say that some of them were not the best. However, one of them which I found myself very unique and actually using quite a lot was the Viso Tau. It has pretty much the best travel speed of its guided missile, which I really enjoyed for shooting people out of the sky, surprisingly. Even though this vehicle isn't made for anti-air, people started finding a very nice and niche use for it. But also overall, the movement with these is also very fun, and it's very hard to also hit you. But yeah, this update pretty much did hit the sweet spot of being an amazing content addition, but also providing us quality of life at the same time. I think this is the type of update which War Tycoon should always be aiming for, an update that never gets hate, but an update that the community heavily requests, but also provides content and some fun ways for the developers to also make money in the meantime. It pretty much just satisfies everyone. Anyway, for the time being, I'll see you guys next video. Do let me know in the comment section down below what would be your personal top 5 list. I think I did hit the landing in terms of this list. However, I know some people do have a little bit more of a different view on it. Anyway, if you'd like to see the top 5 worst updates which War Tycoon had this year, and there were some really terrible ones, then I'd be happy to do that video as well. Do just let me know in the comment section. Anyway, see you guys next video. Have a great day, and thank you so much to my channel members.